Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then we're available on demand, and we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Tuesday, March 21st, 2023, and we're live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ plus community. Our mission is to support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian, trans, students and youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS, healthcare, business, political advocacy, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader communities.
Well, let's welcome anchor Dan Rios. He is the director of LGBTQ plus marketing for the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, the official destination marketing organization for Greater Miami and Miami Beach, joining their marketing and tourism division in 2002. Dan is considered one of America's top experts on LGBTQ plus travel and tourism. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Al. Good to be here, everyone. A lot of stuff happening in Miami right now, getting ready for our biggest event of the year, Miami Beach Pride, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. So let's welcome anchor Scott Galvin. He is the executive director of Safe Schools South Florida, providing a safe space for LGBTQ plus youth, a member of the North Miami City Council, the longest serving LGBTQ plus legislature in the state of Florida. He sits on the board of directors of AIDS Health Foundation and volunteers with the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening. It's really good to be here. I'm happy to be able to make my way north of the border and join you here in Fort Lauderdale.
Scott, I've got to jump right in. Safe Schools is going to be doing an event April 1st. Tell us a little bit about, we're going to be involved with you. Tell us a little bit about it.
So with all that's going on, it was born from all of the recent legislation that is anti-trans in a variety of different ways, medical, et cetera. And one of our board members who's trans wanted to host this sort of like virtual town hall forum where we could provide voices from the trans community to come in and talk about important issues to them. So we're going to thank you for allowing us to host it here. We're going to have an event on April 1st, Saturday, April 1st from noon to 3. It's going to be virtual here on your networks and also with people in the audience. I see those chairs out there. Yeah. So we're going to have a crowd of people, and it should be not only informative and educational, but there'll be an element of entertainment and surprise at the same time.
Excellent. And it's very valuable in terms of supporting safe schools and all of the issues that our young people and LGBTQ community face. So you can watch it at Safe Schools, at their website, and of course all of the platforms of Hotspots and Happening Out Television Network. April 1st, 12 noon. Make sure you tune in to support our LGBTQ youth.
Be there or be square. Right. Now let's welcome John Hayden, a journalist for 28 years. He now works for several outlets, including South Florida Gay News as a reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ plus community. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners. For a second, I thought that said Oscar Wilde, but that's another story. He's working.
That would be Al.
He's working on his outfit for SunServe's Studio 54 themed gala this weekend, and the end result will likely mean he won't be invited back next year. Welcome, John.
Oh, it's going to be as stylish as I always am.
It's true.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, March 21, 2023.
Well, first, let's queer up LGBTQ plus civil rights. Smart Ride's Glen Weinzimer to be honored at SAVE's Champions of Equality Gala. The Save Champions of Equality Gala will be held this year on May 14, 2023 at the New World Center in Miami Beach. And they have just revealed this year's Champions of Equality Gala honoree, and we're all thrilled here at Happening Out Television Network. This year's honoree will be none other than the Smart Ride founder, Glen Weinzimer. Glen has resided in South Florida since 1984. In 2003, he founded the Smart Ride, a two-day bicycle ride raising awareness for HIV and AIDS services throughout Florida that gives back 100% of all of its proceeds. Glen has been recognized as one of the community's 50 most influential leaders by South Florida Gay News and one of the 100 most influential HIV-positive people by PLUS Magazine. For his advocacy work in the LGBTQ plus community, Glen has also received accolades from the Advocate magazine, the South Beach AIDS Project, and the World AIDS Museum. SAVE is South Florida's longest-serving LGBTQ plus rights and advocacy organization. It was founded in 1993, and the organization's stated mission is to, quote, promote, protect, and defend equality for people in South Florida who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, end quote. Tickets for the gala are available at championsofequality.com. What fabulous news this is. First off, let's talk broadly about Champions of Equality. There was a couple of years where it went on in a virtual environment because of the pandemic. Then they returned in a rotation where they've done it in the fall, a tougher time to do it than in the spring. So this is the first time, frankly, that I can remember since being in South Florida that it's returning back to its traditional time, which is in the spring. So that's great news for SAVE and their efforts to raise money, especially in terms of the combinations of efforts for the AIDS Walk donations, which go as the match from AHF through April 30th. So fabulous for SAVE. If you want to spend your money wisely in equality advocacy, this is an event you should support. Then there's Glen. And Glen has... Glen's sitting there going, what's Al going to say? Al's going to say, wow, as executive director of Smart Ride, this is the year to recognize Glen Weinzimer. Yeah. This is the 20th anniversary of the Smart Ride. They've raised, I haven't heard the final number, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of around $15 million in its history. But this is the big year, 20th anniversary. They have a goal target to raise $2 million. Breathtaking, breathtaking. And what, in addition to that, the big picture of Smart Ride, we're going to be promoting Smart Ride as a sponsor with them all year long. But also that's the big picture. But the smaller picture is Glen owns Bona Restaurant on Wilton Drive. He does Give Back Mondays every Monday. He's done it since, electric lights and Edison invented them. And he's an all-around champion and good guy in our community. He's absolutely just a tremendous representative for the LGBTQ community, and there could be no better representation in 23 of the 20th for Smart Ride and Glen Weinzimer. Congratulations to him.
Super cool dude. I actually knew him first through the restaurant didn't know his history of doing all of these things in the community with the bike ride, etc. So I already thought he was great, and then you learn that he's doing all that. It's like, wow, there's some real depth there.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Which is really surprising when you meet him to find out that there's some real depth there.
but he does. He walks the walk. He talks the talk. He rides the ride. He has been. I believe he found out he was HIV positive, like in or around 1993, which was a very tough time. It was a turning point when we started to get more meds into more people's bodies, but it was a dark time for that kind of diagnosis. But he lives, he thrives, he persevered then. A decade later, he starts up the Smart Ride, and now here we are 20 years later. So kudos. I'm proud to call him a friend. I've met him professionally first. I now know him personally, and I also think he could, in addition to this award, he could win a show on Food Network for those garlic knots.
You know, Fay told me one time, this is true, Fay What told me the only reason she likes Glen Weinzimer is those garlic knots. That's the only reason she likes him.
Well, I'm going to have to get down there and taste his knots.
Yes.
That's with the K.
Can I watch that on a subscription service? Or
You can
Well,
watch
we
it
went
on
there quickly,
It's
didn't we?
Happening.
Yes.
Love you, Glen.
Only friends of Glen Weinzimer can make these kind of jokes. Absolutely. Congratulations. And don't miss the Save Gala in May. Don't miss it.
Next, let's queer up health. Broward House will be Dining Out for Life 2023. Broward House says this year's Dining Out for Life will be different. The theme is Dine, Donate, Win Prizes. You're requested to dine at the participating restaurants, and a percentage of your bill will be donated back to Broward House. You can support this cause from April 1st to April 13th by dining out and donating directly to Broward House. Broward House's mission is to improve the quality of life for individuals impacted with chronic health challenges, including HIV, by providing pathways to wellness. This event also allows Broward House to have the greatest outreach and touch people differently than when they are out testing. In case anyone wants to get involved, they can donate to Broward House in different other ways, like donating online or via mail, adopting a restaurant, and encouraging others to donate. Patrons can share their dine-out experience or show support on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter using hashtags hashtag DOFL954 and hashtag DineOutGiveBack. More information is available on browardhouse.org. I think it's lost sometimes that, housing is a healthcare issue. A lot of times having a safe, comfortable, affordable place to live has a real outcome on your health. And mentioning HIV patients too, who already have those challenges. So it's really cool to see that they're doing this event not only to help their housing efforts, but also helping their health outreach efforts.
One of the things that I would say for Broward House, I participated in Smart Ride for the first time ever in November, and it overnights in Hawks Key, and I participated, reported, I did a lot of interviews for it. And the first evening at Hawks Key, they do a program, and it was conjunction of supporting the coming World AIDS Day and the issue. And the director of Broward House, all of the beneficiaries spoke. And I thought about HIV and health services that are provided to our community in a completely different way at that moment. Because the executive director of Broward House talked about services that they provided. And in her talking, she talked about how Broward House was able to provide dentures and teeth for somebody that needed services that goes to Broward House. And the effect of that recipient of service, of how they felt it changed their life to simply have dentures. And that is a service that is directly related to an organization like Broward House. And of course, HIV is their flagship, but other kinds of services that flow out of an HIV provider. And And I remember walking away from that of thinking, wait, I'm going to think about HIV services in a different way, because it's more than testing, it's more than PrEP, it's more than prevention. There's so many other services. And so Eat Out, it's a great way to help support Broward House. We've been involved in this for a couple of years. Scott, it gives me a quick opportunity. I'm sorry, because of green screen you can't show it, but you were a big chicken Saturday. Tell us about the AIDS Walk. You were on the board at AHF. Tell us about Saturday and kind of give us a summary of that.
And thanks to everybody who walked, to talk about an event that raised over $2 million. It did fantastically well. I'm on the board of AHF, and I have all sorts of backstories about how I came to be on the board. It was because of the then Fort Lauderdale AIDS Walk. But this past weekend, I wore a costume. It's always been
you do every year.
I have done it every year since 2009. I've been Leprechaun, Easter Bunny, Captain Hook, one of those inflatable T-Rex things. But my gimmick...
It sounds like mental health awareness that Broward House might be able to help you.
You know, I think they might have a room for me. Yeah, with padded walls. But, you know, it's great fun. And the gimmick of saying, donate to my goal, and I'll dress. And you know, I always tease it for weeks. And then announce my costume in the last 24 hours in the big push to get people to give money. And this year I dressed as a giant rubber chicken, and it was great laughs, great fun.
And it was a great costume. You literally strutted, because, you know, that's what chickens do. You strutted right past me. I was at the start-finish line with the cheer team, and I was like, oh, that's a cool costume. I mean, I was like, I haven't seen this much chicken since I was at La Boy on Thursday.
Oh, now I understand why I missed Scott, because he was with all of the cheerleaders at the cheer team. I wasn't noticing Scott Galvin. Now I know why. No, I saw you.
But I have to ask, did it get quite hot in that rubber chicken?
Oh, it's brutal. There's been a couple of years where I've sworn I'm never doing this again, because it's tough. You're wearing a full body outfit, walking for 3 miles. But it's worth it. Even though I suffer while I'm doing it, after the fact, I'm really happy. I've raised my money, and, you know, it's a good laugh.
You know, one last thing that relates to the AIDS Walk, and it ties into Broward House. Broward House is a recipient, so dollar for dollar match. You for Safe Schools in the dollar for dollar match. How does it feel to you, Scott, being on the board of AHF? You're volunteering to be on the board, helping guide the organization, especially for LGBTQ community, and come into an event in 2023 that raises $2 million in a day. What does that the feeling of how much good that does for LGBTQ community in South Florida?
And what's dumbfounding for me really is the entire annual budget right now of AIDS healthcare. We're just over a $2 billion organization in multiple American states and in 40 different countries. So we're not only helping HIV folks here within the continental United States, but there are people in parts of Africa and Europe who rely on AIDS healthcare and Asia to get access to medication that they can afford, etc. So just everything that, you know, whether it's AIDS Walk Atlanta, AIDS Walk Florida, or Out of the Closet, thrift stores, everything the organization is doing is just providing help in ways I don't think most people will ever realize.
Yeah. It's very rewarding. And congratulations to you and AHF, because so many people are benefited in our community for that event.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, next, let's queer up trans rights. Canada may grant asylum to American transgender people as casualties of culture war. Tens of thousands of Canadians are joining a call for the Canadian government to help transgender and non-binary people fearing the outcome of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation gaining ground in the United States and other countries. Kate Klassen, an activist in Waterloo, launched an online petition to the House of Commons asking the federal government to extend the right to claim asylum by reasons of eliminationist laws in their home countries, wherever that country may be. She said friends in the U.S. are already preparing for the possibility that they will have no choice but to leave the country. Laws and bills targeting LGBTQ+ rights at the state level in the U.S. have already reached record numbers in 2023. Klassen's petition has garnered more than 135,000 signatures since it was started on January 26th, the third highest number of signatures behind two petitions regarding firearms legislation since the federal government initiated e-petitions in 2015. Mike Maurice, the Green Party MP for Ontario's Kitchener Centre, authorized the e-petition and will present it to the Parliament once it closes. He says he's surprised at how much attention it has received, but that it speaks to Canadians having, quote, a sense of wanting to be a safe haven, end quote. I gotta tell you, I can't be prouder to have married a Canadian. I mean, it's just so nice.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
Yeah, but you know, it's so great to actually see, on a more serious note, that a lot of states have done some outreach and to the trans community, but to see it on a federal, you know, a national level and from our neighbors to the north, it's really comforting. That you know, beautiful story. I'm very happy to report that.
I think it's 100% depressing that this is even a thing.
Yeah.
And it absolutely focuses on where we are as a country right now. And the fact that we've been, you know, having administrations say, no more refugees in America, while creating American refugees that have to go to find someplace safe where they can leave their life. And I think that just focuses it right there.
You know, we're in a situation. This story makes me really happy, and but I want to make sure that I say to both of your points, but especially your point, the criticism of America in what we're seeing in many states towards the trans community is not. Our criticism is not un-American. And for two-dimensional listeners and two-dimensional thinkers, you're getting it wrong if you think that our objection to what we're watching is not American or it's un-American. Because we love America, and as a result, we support America, but we think we're on the wrong track on this issue. And this story brings that to full attention. When you think of Canada and Canadians, you think of a much more gentle people. You think about a society that thinks much more about societal good and societal benefit than what we have seen over the last number of years, especially in coinciding with Donald Trump becoming president of the United States and everything that ushered in. That is not un-American. It just longs for the observation that we wish we could be better on this track. And there is no doubt that we are creating a refugee class in America. And I just interviewed Jeanette Jennings and talking about Jazz's experience in Harvard. And Jeanette made it really crystal clear to me, wait, she's at Harvard and how she's embraced in Massachusetts and Boston and Harvard University. She could be in Florida, in Gainesville, at the University of Florida, where the student health department is reporting Jazz's medical, even conversation to Tallahassee. Yeah. It's a direct contrast of what this story is saying all about. It makes me sad that that a country like Canada says, wait, we are potentially going to make it legal to accept you as a refugee from America. Right. Yeah. It's really surprising.
We move on and we queer up South Florida gay news. As GOP tramples LGBTQ plus civil rights, community marches back. In this week's SFGN, Online Now and On Stands Thursday, I look at efforts to get the message across in Tallahassee. This is legislative crunch time, when the annual session moves bills from committee to the floor with a vote, often followed by the governor's signature. Once again, many of those bills focus on LGBTQ plus oppression. Couple that with a GOP-controlled bureaucracy taking on LGBTQ plus supportive businesses, and these are truly troubling times. With the Republican supermajority in both houses and Governor DeSantis bolstering his extreme credentials for a presidential run, there is little opponents can do to stop him, but they can try. The March in Heels is set for 11 a.m. this Sunday, starting at the Pride Center and marching up Wilton Drive. Along the way will be action stations for people to register to vote or re-register for mail-in ballots, something we have to do every year now due to voter suppression efforts by Republicans. Bud Beeler, one of the march organizers, told me, quote, "One of our goals is to make our voices heard in Tallahassee. That's a long way away, and lawmakers need to hear they can't take away our civil rights," end quote. Drag queens will host each stop, a poignant choice given how fear tactics around drag entertainment are being used to push anti-LGBTQ plus bills. One stop will be at Lit Bar. Owner Charles Horton told me, quote, "Drag is a part of our culture and community. We want to do our part in fighting to protect it," end quote. Participants are encouraged to dress in pride colors and, if you're up to it, do the 1 mile walk in heels to emphasize the point. Wilton Manor's City Commissioner Chris Caputo told me, quote, "This is about who we are as a community, and we must be heard as a community," end quote. You can read more of my story and get updates on LGBTQ plus civil rights attacks at southfloridagaynews.com now or on stands Thursday. And this is a grassroots event. They're pulling together a coalition. It's not just for LGBT, and it's certainly not just for Broward. It's Palm Beach, it's Miami-Dade, and it's Black Democrats. It's the Latino community. It's anyone who can side on the side of doing right. And the fact is, we need this because there's nothing we can do in Tallahassee except yell. We need to organize at the grassroots because after this last election, the Democratic Party in Florida is literally starting from the ground up, even all the way down to the foundation. Maybe we've got a few email lists and phone call lists that might still be relevant to voters, but we need to start our whole organization over again.
Yeah. And I think politically, our strategy has to change as an LGBTQ plus community. We can't continue to do the same thing, which is show up in Tallahassee or at some school board meeting and just yell till we're red in the face. And we have to recognize Republicans don't just have a majority. They have a supermajority.
And can do anything they want.
Anything they want to. And their constituents will be cheering every step of the way. So we need to enlighten people more as to how the process works. I'm glad they're going to be doing the re-registration for the mail-in ballots because a lot of people, my mom lives here in Broward, she didn't realize she now needs to do that again. And we've just got to get to the point where we got to fall back might not be the right term, but we've got to regroup and re-strategize because otherwise we're just going to continue yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling and nothing is going to
Scott, you're an elected official, oldest, do I have this right? You're the oldest living LGBT politician.
I am so old.
I might have gotten a little of that wrong, but after the joke, do you think that we're motivated to find this new strategy? You put it out right in front of us, heard you loud and clear. Do you think we can find that strategy?
We're not moving in that direction yet. I sit in wearing my two hats between the political Scott Galvin and the Safe Schools Scott Galvin. I sit in on a lot of different LGBT group, activist group calls and Zooms and things. And they're still getting people fired up for, workshops of the school board. Well, we need to educate folks that a workshop is just that. There's no vote. There's nothing binding.
Yeah. What are we going to do in Tallahassee?
Right.
We're going to talk to the same echo chamber that we're going to sit in?
And we're going to send people up there and they're going to be, meanwhile, we're spending a lot of the energy of the same people over and over. We're spending the donor dollars over and over. If I'm a Republican, I love seeing the LGBT community spin its wheels like we are.
Yeah.
What we got to do is get down, like you just said, into that grassroots stuff, teach people how the process works, and then come back with a better effort. Scott, that's going to take time. That's okay. Sadly, don't say gay and things like that are going to be the law in this country or in this state for 20 years. Yeah. We better take the time.
Scary.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, one of the things that I do want to look at when I hear this story is, I do try to look at a positive thing. And the fact that this is making us come together like this in a way, I think that there's a lot to be said about that. And I think more of that needs to happen because until we start getting together, even with our allies, like you pointed out, John, it really is going to create hopefully what you're saying and that realization that can actually move us forward.
It's interesting to me, a couple of observations on the story, on John, your story. I'm constantly approached by saying Queer News Tonight has a point of view. Well, okay, CNN does, Fox does. All right, we have a queer point of view, and Yes, we do. We have a queer point of view. But in terms of right or wrong, I just put it in front of everyone. This event is going to take place on Sunday that brings people together from various walks of life to say, wait, drag queens have a freedom of speech and they're not sexualizing children. And so therefore, the way we're going to protest is in a humorous and funny way, protest down Wilton Drive. Right. The contrast of that is a protest of Proud Boys that may have guns, Moms for Liberty that are screaming hateful kinds of words. You compare the strategies of the two protests and tell me which one is more right, however you define that.
And can I say this about, I was literally just on the phone in the car while I was driving with Bud on my way here. One of the things I'm excited about what he's doing is it's got an appeal to the different audience. They're stopping at bars, they're doing activation in non-traditional Pride Center LGBT places. That's super important because if we're going to turn the tide, your regular run-of-the-mill gay guy, so to speak, has got to finally care about what's happening because so many LGBT folks don't have kids. All of what's happening in the schools has been very abstract. It hasn't affected them. And what's happening to the drag queens doesn't affect them. But I'm telling you right now, when they come to close down the clubs because of indecency, or they shut down the pride parades for indecency, they start arresting people. We are at that point again, and we need people to care about that now.
I hope that soundbite is heard. It's just shocking. An interesting additional example of what we're watching. DeSantis came out yesterday talking about the arrest and the legal issue for Donald Trump. And DeSantis does it in a very sophisticated way. He goes, you know, I don't know nothing about paying a porn star for sex, and I know nothing about that, but then ends up on the side of going, but the Southern District of New York is out of control and blah, blah, blah. But I still don't know nothing about an adult porn star and the money that we have. Those are the enemies that are attacking our kids, our teachers, our schools, our parents, and our drag queens. And so we should understand how sophisticated that attack is coming, especially from him. Because Donald Trump looks ham-fisted compared to DeSantis. And it's a question of whether we're going to create a new narrative to fight these kind of arguments. One interesting last thought that from me, I think the White House has an interesting new strategy. They have called out from both the White House press room and from voice from President Biden that the attacks that are happening on trans, that are happening on kids, are happening on drag queens. They have used both times the word sinful. I think these type of attacks are sinful. That is a strategic word because they're getting ready to make the argument from a religious faith standpoint. This violates my religious beliefs. That whether that's successful or not, I think it's interesting because they're taking a page out of the evangelical GLP handbook to say, wait, if you want to talk about church and you want to talk about religion, let's talk about what you're doing. DeSantis kind of does that yesterday without realizing. He takes the bait by going after Trump in talking about the faith kind of position of I know nothing about a porn star and paying for sex secretly, et cetera, and so on. It's a faith base. Where are the evangelicals screaming bloody murder over Donald Trump? This is the new enemy to speech and the issue of LGBT rights in America.
Absolutely. And now, here's a look at what else is in this week's South Florida Gay News.
Next, let's queer up.
This week in South Florida Gay News.
That's all right.
Welcome to South Florida Gay News on Queer News Tonight. I'm reporter and community editor John Hayden. In this week's SFGN On Stands Thursday, we look at efforts to stop anti-LGBTQ+ legislation being debated at the State House in Tallahassee. We preview Sunday's March in Heels, designed to voice support for drag entertainment and start the process of re-registering people to vote and get mail-in ballots. After more than a year of work, SunServe and AHF officially announced their merger. They talk with me about how it will impact services to South Florida's most vulnerable communities. And in recognition of Women's History Month, Wilton Manors honors 5 women making a difference in our community. And we preview the Women of Comedy Showcase this Saturday night at the Hot Spots Happening Out Art Gallery on Dixie Highway. These stories and much more in this week's issue. For SFGN and Queer News Tonight, I'm John Hayden.
Next, let's queer up drag culture. Nashville Love Rising gives hope to Tennessee's drag and trans community. On March 20th, top names in country and American music joined forces in Nashville, Tennessee to perform in the name of equality and inclusion. More than 15 major music artists put on a show to uplift the LGBTQ+ community and highlight the injustices Republicans seek to set into law targeting queer and transgender people. Allison Russell, Maya Byrne, and Brothers Osborne joined Sheryl Crow, Hoosier, Jason Isbell, Maren Morris, and more for a star-studded show called Love Rising, Let Freedom Sing and Dance, a celebration of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness at Bridgestone Arena. The concert came to be through an initiative that began when the Tennessee Pride Chamber organized a letter signed by more than 230 businesses in Tennessee asking Republican Governor Bill Lee to veto what was known as the drag felony bill. Lee signed the bill into law, as well as another that bans gender-affirming care for trans youth. Warner Music has been a supporter of the Tennessee Pride Chamber. A board member who works at Warner Music then worked to get the industry to support the veto. And since then, there has been an intense desire among many artists and representation companies to provide more support to the LGBTQ+ community, including Allison Russell and her management team, Live Nation, and Brandi Carlile and her Looking Out Foundation. Brian Rossman, the president of the organization, suggests that in addition to Tennessee Pride Chamber, those who wish to get involved should contact the Tennessee Equality Project, Tennessee Pride Chamber Foundation, and Inclusion Tennessee.
Good evening, everybody. What an incredible turnout and what an incredible lineup. Every person, regardless of who they love and how they dress and how they identify, every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. The importance of individuality, expression, and diversity. We will always be a welcoming city. Let me say that again. We will always be a welcoming city.
What's super about this concert is that it happened in Tennessee. It didn't happen in the friendly confines of New York City or Los Angeles. And you look at those pictures, look, there was a big crowd there. Yeah. So it's encouraging to know that there are allies in places where you don't normally, expect that they would be. And with Dolly Parton also coming from Tennessee, as she put it, she hopes they don't outlaw her.
Yeah.
So
because she's always in drag.
She's got bigger hair than all of them. Yeah. She's known for it.
But also, like I said earlier, this is another great example of how we respond and how it brings people together and community together to build and unite in order to be able to respond. So I think this is beautiful.
You know what I love and hate about the Tennessee law is that it goes so far that it really could be easily challenged in court. Tennessee, and we talk about Nashville, and then to the west there's Memphis, 2 blue dots in a very, very red sea of snow-capped mountains. I lived in Knoxville.
I'm sorry, were you talking about Florida or?
Yes, all the snow-capped mountains.
I was going to say snow-capped mountains. We already talked about Dolly Parton.
I didn't get quick enough of the red dots versus the blue dots.
But it is a place that is super conservative. They, to a certain extent, a lot of backwards thinking, especially on civil liberty issues. So I like that this could actually be challenged and probably successfully challenged at the Supreme Court, at least on some parts.
I broadly say bravo, Nashville, for doing this. I really think that we're going to see, as the year goes on, a lot of this. We're going to see entertainers, especially, have dramatic impact that are really going to slay GOP, evangelicals, radical conservatives. Entertainers are going to say, wait, this is just becoming, they're going to use the word fascist over and over and over again, and they're going to be able to communicate in TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and other media platforms faster than the old white preacher or the old white politician is going to be able to do, and a tide is going to turn against them in those segments. Now the question is that powerful enough to change their attitudes? And it leads me to a second point. I'm extremely cautious over the idea of suggesting boycott. Nashville, if people said across the country, don't go to Nashville, you're hurting the people that absolutely support community.
Right.
So be careful in chosen word of what you're saying and how we respond. Because if you pull out the grenade and throw the grenade, you blow something up and you don't get it back.
Right.
So we should be very intentioned and careful about what our next steps are in terms of protest.
Next, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Miami Beach Pride promises return to the beach celebration. Gay Miami has some of the best beaches in the world, so it makes sense that the city's celebration of LGBTQ+ life will be held right there in front of the sea, Miami Beach. Pride's Springtime Festival returned in 2023 to bringing its celebration of all things LGBTQ throughout Miami Beach. Get ready for Miami Beach Pride's special events, family-friendly community activations, social mixers, and world-class entertainment from April 1st through April 16th. The Pride will be kickstarted with Pride flag raising ceremony at Miami Beach City Hall on April 1st, following various events like Pride Lights the Night, Flip the Switch event at Euclid Oval, Fun Dip by Sweet Spot official kickoff pool party at the Clevelander, Angles Dinner, Miss Miami Beach Pride pageant at Exchange Miami, and much more. The main Pride Festival will be for 2 days, April 15th and 16th, featuring VIP beach affair at Loomis Park hosted by Sandra Bernhardt. Pride Festival Day 1 and 2 will be held at Loomis Park, celebrating 15 years of Pride. These 2 days will be open to all. The final day will start with the Miami Beach Pride Parade at Ocean Drive on April 16th at 12 p.m. It will be free, cost, and open to all. We really cannot wait for this year's event, celebrating 15 years. We're happy to be more involved at the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau this year. We're hosting an Angels Dinner on April 3rd at the Mondrian South Beach to raise funds for Miami Beach's Angels program,
nice.
issuing some scholarships to LGBTQ+ youth in Miami-Dade County. And that scholarship will be in memory of Michael Aller, one of our visionaries in Miami Beach. So we're very happy to be doing that.
Ben, I'm curious, a wonderful opportunity to talk about Miami Beach Pride and you, one of the top voices in tourism, LGBT tourism in America. Help us understand how an event like this affects community. We know the parties, we know the parade, we know the beach festival. We all have good understanding of that. Help us understand the value of an event like this for a community like Miami Beach, Dade County.
I think there's a lot of positive that comes from it, not only from bringing the community, the LGBTQ+ community together, but it is also a way to present the LGBTQ community and to our allies, to people that have never experienced it, to visitors that happen to be in Miami Beach and come across these festivities. Last year when we were there, a lot of the people were saying we could not believe that there's such an immense gathering of people, so peaceful, everyone's happy, it's just a matter of communicating the harmony that really exists in our community. And I think that message is worth a lot more.
I want to ask another question related to it. I know people traveling into Broward County, Miami-Dade County, tourism is a gigantic business driver. But in this instance, in addition to the business driver of people coming to Miami-Dade County for LGBT tourism, which I know is gigantic, especially because of the port. It's the most trafficked port in the entire world. People forget that people in Mississippi don't necessarily have something like a Miami Beach Pride. Exactly. And so it comes to awareness, stories like this, we're marketing in Roku, and somebody in Arkansas comes across and goes, wait, what's going on in Miami Beach? Tell us a little bit about how the image of community is affected by an event like Miami Beach Pride.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind when you're describing that is, these visitors from, Tennessee or wherever they are on a big bus tour, and they happen to go by Palace and they see their first drag queen. Up to that point, this has all been a concept to them. It's like what they see on the screen. So to actually come in touch.
Sold by Tucker Carlson.
Exactly, exactly. So this is really a connection, and a lot of these folk relate to the world through what they are told versus what they are experiencing. Yeah. I think that by putting them out there front and center and seeing that this is just a person, this is just a way of entertainment and coming together, I think it really makes an impact.
I can just tell you broadly. I'm sorry, did you want to, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, my passport has expired, so I won't be able to make it.
You're not allowed to cross the border. One thing that I think is also super interesting about this event is, I've been to literally hundreds of LGBT events, Pride events, all over America, all over the world. Literally, I'm not, no exaggeration. Miami Beach is really unique in that you're on the beach. If you've seen the famous movie from the 90s, The Birdcage, that parade is on that street in front of that club, the fictional club, of the Birdcage, and that's where the parade is. And the festival is literally in the sand, so you're engaging in some kind of booth or a stage for a concert or whatever it is. You're in the sand at South Beach. That is unique in all of America. Yeah. All of America. So don't miss it. It's coming in April.
Too funny. Next, we are all proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
Hi, I'm Chris Caputo, City Commissioner with Wilton Manors, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dan Rios, Scott Galvin, and John Hayden, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ+ world, we wish you good night.
Night.